Dalkaen here, and this is my review of Mega Man 04 for the Game Boy Advance. Despite my original plans to move right on to where I left off with the Mega Man X series many years ago, I think I've decided to give the Mega Man series a rest for now. I really enjoyed my time with Mega Man 0, but I want to try something else. Having said that, we've still got to talk about this game before we move on. Mega Man 04 seeks to reinvent the wheel in a number of ways. The first three games of the series reused a lot of aspects from each other, particularly when it comes to returning Mavericks and weapons. Each of those first three games featured the Z-Buster, Z-Saber, a rod weapon of some kind, and the Shield Boomerang. 04 ditches the Shield Boomerang entirely for the Zero Knuckle, which is less a weapon and more a way for Zero to snatch enemy weapons. This is pretty cool, if not a little bizarre. Most enemies in the game can have weapons liberated from them. Zero can use Matar helmets as shields, or fire off drills stolen from mole robots. If any of these stolen weapons have an elemental effect, they also are effective against bosses and other enemies that have a weakness to it, so this is cool. But honestly, it feels more like a gimmick than anything else, and I found myself ignoring it by the time I reached the latter half of the game. The Zero Knuckles used for platforming is honestly more relevant, as it allows Zero to grab onto bars and vines that do appear in some stages. I think the most positive change for Mega Man 04 lies in the change to the ranking system. Rank does not affect boss difficulty, nor does it prevent you from acquiring skills from bosses like it did before. Boss difficulty can be set manually by firing up a weather-changing machine that seems to have miraculously dropped from the sky. How the Resistance base ended up with such a device, or why no one bats an eye when Zero sets the weather to unfavorable conditions intentionally, is anyone's guess, but plot is not exactly the strong suit of this series. Regardless, each stage varies in difficulty depending on one of two possible weather conditions, essentially toggling between easy mode and hard mode. In hard mode, the stage itself is harder, and so in fact is the Maverick Boss, but in exchange you'll be awarded with an EX skill for tackling the extra challenge. Completing a stage under suboptimal weather conditions also awards Zero with 10 points toward his ranking, but in my case that was never the draw. I just wanted to collect those skills. As usual, EX skills are far from mandatory, but they are admittedly one of the few ways to exploit elemental weaknesses, since the elemental body chips from the previous games are now conspicuously absent. Speaking of chips, they haven't been removed, but they are implemented quite differently this time around. In 03, chips were hidden in secret discs that were scattered around each level. This time around, chips must be constructed from parts obtained from defeated enemies. In many cases, the recipes for building these parts are a complete mystery, unless you've been lucky enough to acquire the information from NPCs at the Resistance base. Honestly, I can't say I'm a huge fan of trying combinations at random to create chips, and that's what the game instructs you to do. Pieces are consumed upon use, and you're often left only with junk for your efforts. Chips like the Auto Charge Head chip and Double Jump Foot chip return, but they're much more of a pain to construct. I definitely found myself missing the system from the previous game here. Mega Man 04 also presents us with the final iteration of the Cyber Elf system. I'm not certain why they decided to ditch the satellite/fusion elf system from the previous game, because it was a particularly strong implementation. 04 instead only has one Cyber Elf with upgradable characteristics. This is interesting, except it limits the ways in which you can benefit from it due to how the tier system works. The level 1 Nurse upgrade awards you with scattering health pickups during missions, but later levels increase your overall health. What if you wanted both? You just don't have that option anymore. Similarly, if you want run speed and the ability to end your Z-Saber combo with an upward slash, you can't have that. On the theme of new content, 04 features 8 brand new Maverick Bosses with stages all selectable from the very beginning, with no repeats from any of the previous games of the series. Not all of their EX skills are new, however, and some are only slight variations on what was available before. The Ice Javelin EX skill is actually pretty interesting, but the Tractor Beam shot never seemed to do much of anything as far as I could tell. Most of the new Mavericks are pretty tough, particularly since so few of them have elemental weaknesses to exploit. I have to admit that the only strategy I could figure out for a few of them was mindlessly triple slashing them with the Z-Saber, but others I did figure out a pattern and use more technique in my approach. Mega Man 04 made some odd design choices, but I respect Inti Create's impulse to try new things with each new entry in the series. This is particularly important since the engine for all 4 of these games is pretty much identical, and a lot of graphics and music are reused between games. Although the ending of 04 is ambiguous about the continuation of the series, I know that more games in the series exist in the form of Mega Man ZX and ZX Advent, but I'm unsure if they qualify as direct sequels or spiritual successors. I've done very little research on them on purpose, but I expect I'll play them at some point in the future. Just not yet.